Gethsemane, he said, Lord, and now, Father, glorify me with thine own self, with the glory that I had with you before the world began. God, we were living in heaven with God before we got to earth. That's how Adam got here, because God formed his body from the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils. So God breathed out of himself. Therefore, when a man is born, he is born by God exhaling. And when we die, all God does is inhale and takes you back to it. So I need you to understand that the Bible says, Isaiah 55:11, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me empty or void. Now, when you look at the word word there in that text, it means God breathed. That's unique because it means God breathed. Now, Genesis 2:7 says, as I just quoted, that God breathed into man, and man became a living soul. Which means you got to understand, when God created everything else, he said, let there be. Which means it was not existing before he said, let it come forth. But when he brought us into existence, he spoke his word. When he said, no, he didn't speak no word, well, he breathed. And the word means God breathed. Which means that when God brought me here, he didn't create me when he breathed. He just brought me out of his mind and said, okay, now, Andre, you're here. That I was already there, which means everything that God speaks, he ain't declaring something new on the agenda. It was already on the agenda, and he just spoke it, or he breathed. That was the purpose of Pentecost. He breathed in the people something that they already had in heaven. And y'all don't hear what I'm saying, which means every time God breathes into you, he breathes another prophecy. That's why he said, I sent my word against my name. In other words, what God says is that what I said you were before you got here, I speak my word. In other words, I said a prophecy against you to remind me of what I promised you before you got here. You got to understand, prophecy ain't information. It's just a reminder of a divine reality that your spirit man forgot because you've been here so long. Y'all got to hear what I'm saying. That God says, I sent my word against my name. And every time I declare my word to you, it reminds your spirit that your blessing is closer than it was yesterday. My God. God, I'm gonna need y'all to sit down here. So now he says, I knew you before. I got to prove my point. So now he proves his point to Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter number 1. You ain't got to turn there. I got you covered. Don't worry. Y'all got you. So now here we go. Jeremiah chapter 1. He talks to Jeremiah because Jeremiah in Jeremiah chapter 29, he's in a place of despondency. So he talks to Jeremiah, and I'm pretty sure he has to remind him of what he said. So now he speaks to him. He says, Jeremiah, understand. Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. How could you know me? You are my Mahashva. I'm only doing this for my brother. So this is for you, my brother. In other words, God says, I need you to get this, that before you were sperm that went up through a set of fallopian tubes and penetrated an egg, Jeremiah, I knew you. Before you were a zygote that was once a sperm that went up through a set of fallopian tubes and penetrated an egg, I knew you. Before you were an embryo that was once a zygote that was once a sperm that went up through a set of fallopian tubes and penetrated an egg, I knew you. Before you were a fetus that was once an embryo that was once a zygote that was once a sperm that went up through a set of fallopian tubes and penetrated an egg, I knew you. I already knew who you were going to be. As a matter of fact, I ordained you to be a prophet, which means you can't have no other identity because I ordained your identity. And it doesn't matter if people say, I don't want you to prophesy, you just gonna be an evangelist. Well, I already ordained it. And then watch this. Then he says, I sanctified you. Now the word sanctification here, I know for the spiritual folks, you got to check me out. I promise you can call me. The word sanctification in this text means protection, which means that he says, I'm going to protect you from the vultures that will try to speak another word on you contrary to what I spoke before you got here. He said, I sanctified you. You can't be nothing but what I called you. I sanctified you because there's a part of you, beloved, that cannot be contaminated. There's a part of you, because hear me, when we were in the garden, we did not lose our image, we lost our likeness. Because the image comes from God, which means that is the God factor. That's why the devil don't like you. If you're a sinner, let me help you, the devil don't like you. And the reason why he don't like you is because you got the image of God down in you. And he knows that's the part that he can't separate you from, because God sanctified. He's sanctified. Now, what happens is that God says that you have to get your likeness restored, because your likeness got to match your image. Good God, y'all got to hear it. That's why he says in Romans, I'm not trying to make you in the image of God. I want you to be like God. Y'all got to hear what I'm saying. That God says, beloved, in this season, I'm going to make sure that your image match your likeness. You going to be qualified to be what I said you were before you got here. I got to do some more work. Let me go sit down. So now he says, you are protected. You're sanctified. We just tell somebody I'm sanctified. I'm sanctified. I'm sanctified. Now watch this. Watch this, beloved. Now he says, so it's matashva, which means he thinks it was a pre-plan. It was something that God pre-did. But then he says, I know the matashva, the thoughts that I think. Let the church say think. Now, this is unique because this is progressive. It is progressive, which means it is an ongoing activity. In the Greek, in the Hebrew, it's ongoing, which means as makashva is pre-planned, is something that's already been set, as etched in stone, can't be changed. This is progressive in the Hebrew. So he says it means think. So now the transliteration of the word is the word kasab. It's Strong's number 2803, and it means to plan or to weave together. Now I got to deal with that because it is a whole lot in this definition. So he says to weave. Let the church say weave together. Now, my wife and I, we went, thank you, Mama, we went to Disney and took the children to Disney. And my children were fascinated, hidden by the Spirit. They were fascinated because there was this Turkish lady and she was making Oriental rugs. And she had it between the two little posts up there. We went to see one of the little, you know, they got the, in Epcot, they got the little cities you can watch, you know. So they had the lady, she up there making the little rugs. Now, understand, when we walked up, it was just about complete. But from the backside, it would look like a whole bunches of blotches of yarn, and it looked so ugly. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, ain't nothing pretty about that. That's the most ugliest piece of mess I've seen in my life. But when I went around the front, I saw a little girl, and she was like she was reading a book, had little stars and everything. And I went back to the back. I said, the back don't look like this. A lot of people been looking at the wrong side of your life. God said, because I'm weaving it together, they can't judge you from where you are, because they won't look like where you going. Because God said, I'm going to weave it. I'm going to weave it together. Tell somebody it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. We're going to weave it together. Tell somebody he's going to weave it together. So what I did, because I'm nosy, I'm nosy. So I asked the lady, now this is what blew me away. I asked the lady, I said, ma'am, why are you doing this from the back to the front? She said, no, baby, you missed it. She says, I'm working in the front. What you see is the back. I said, wait a minute. I said, God, what are you saying? God says, I declared the end from the beginning. So what you think, you're not looking good right